Good morning, everybody. Good morning to dead Linger, folks. We're taking a look at the roadmap. So here's another road to the apocalypse where we're going to take a look at all the fun stuff we have planned out. We are into the world. Yesterday we talked about zones and building variety, which is exciting. I actually had. Oh, let me pull this up if I can find it here. Um, ugh, come on, internet. Okay, I wanted to share this because not that I get a whole lot of fun stuff, but there was. Where'd it go? Yeah, here we go. Here we go. I wanted to share this, not the video part, but right here. I wish it would show up better, but this is from Lunas Games. Posts a lot of great comments, and this one I wanted to share because this goes back to buildings from yesterday just a little bit. Um, I mentioned farming was a good idea because we talked about when we talked about zones, and I mentioned if you had your mountain that went all the way up and there's a flat spot, you could do farming up there, defend your position and stuff like that. So I know we've talked about farming before. We brought up how farming is going to be key to the future, especially when they get barricading done, or you can build your fortress, whatever it is that they decide to do, that you somehow can create your own sustainable food source. So farming, we still know farming needs to happen, and water is on the way. I forget where I read that, but just in one of the various random clicking through forum posts and things, I did see that water is mentioned. Water's coming, but I can't quote any specific source or give a date or a time or anything like that. Just like other stuff is coming. But anyhow, so we mentioned the farming, but here was cool because he had a lot of good things for the buildings. I know we're backtracking the roadmap, but this was great because he had some ideas in here that I didn't even think of, but I thought would be cool. So buildings he wants to see other than what they have. They got campground and parks. Now that's true. I like that. They have the cabin in the woods, but when you play the game State of Decay, they have a section that's got a whole bunch of cabins. Like when you first start, that's what you come into is a campground area, and it has a spot where it's got like little tents and stuff on the ground, and then another spot where it's got cabins and a public restroom. Oh, that's another one they need to put, the public restroom. Come on, you got to have that. So campgrounds would be cool. We mentioned yesterday the graveyards and the funeral, but what about church buildings? So I think churches would be a good complement to that as well. And we mentioned the graveyard, police stations, fire stations. Those are a must. If you got the prison, then you got to have the police stations. Police stations would be great places to store, all kinds of weaponry. You find the undead inside the prison cells. However you want to make it up, but I think a police station would make sense. Fire department. You got to come back and think what kinds of things you would find in the fire department. So you'd hopefully find the fireman axes. As they start to come up with more clothing options, then you can have fireman suits, policeman suits. At some point your game is going to be a character dress up thing, but this would be the great places to find those particular items. Hospitals we've mentioned before. The storm shelter. Okay, so now we're getting into some of the thoughts I thought would really blow this category up. So there was storm shelter and the survivalist bunkers. So you get some of those folks like you watch Doomsday Prepper type of things, and they get their shelters built out of whatever. But I thought, what would be amazing, and this goes back to the idea when we talked about the vehicles, and we mentioned, how cool would it be to take like the body of like a 747 jet or something like that and bury it in the ground. Then you have this nice cylindrical building thing that's got seats that you could take out, make beds. I mean, jets are huge for one person, but take that to a more plausible route, and that would be storm shelters and bunkers and stuff. Can you imagine if you found like when you talk about the storm shelters, in parts of the world, in backyards, the tornadoes are coming, and here's a twister, and you gotta go down into the storm shelter to not get sucked away in this big tornado thing. That would be cool, have underground structures. And we've mentioned that, but they could have these pre-constructed underground structures that you could take over and move into, barricade it, come out when you need to, go down, barricade it, and have your little underground sanctuary. And that leads me to thinking, it would be cool if you could at some point start to dig in my son has come out. He has a thought.
Would it be cool if there was a secret lab?
Oh, now he wants the secret lab too. Uh, he's got to think about creating the
Underground.
H1N1 virus and stuff, underground laboratories.
And it also has like blast doors, like they had missile silos.
Oh, okay, here we go. Now what he was saying, this is cool too, but the underground missile silo base. Now, I know I've seen, you can go on National Geographic or some of these websites and find the episodes where people bought the underground missile silos and turned that into a home. So there's a lot of potential here to go under the ground as well as on the surface of the world. And I think that's something they definitely need to explore. I know in the game, you take like 7 Days to Die or just about any voxel-based game now that's got deformed terrain and digging and stuff like that, you can, dig into the ground. And I know that that wasn't the focus of the Dead Linger, but I think if you could come up with like, pre-constructed places that are located in the world already, I think that would be very cool. All right, and then just to finish this out, he mentioned the mall. So they've already got like the big Leland's type store, but a mall would be cool too. My wife and I had a discussion like how it wasn't necessarily a mall. The Leland's is a grocery store, but we thought, how about like a Walmart? If if the apocalypse came and it was just you, maybe a few friends, Walmart would be the perfect place to hole up for a while because it's got all the toilet paper, bedding, camping supplies, all the stuff already. And the roof, you could barricade off the bottom, barricade away up to the roof, live on top of the roof, just camp on the roof. There's all these things. So a mall would be perfect as well. So I hadn't even thought of that one. But then there was the obligatory, the fairground, right? Because you got to have the creepy zombie clowns, hotels. Hotels would also be good because of all the, potential kitchen, food, places to sleep. You could put a lot of people in it. They're like just a whole bunch of little mini apartments. You could have a lot of survivors in the hotel. Car dealerships. And I was thinking of that too when we talked about water and boat transportation at some point in the future. You'd have to have, places that sell the boats. So you might find a lot of boats. So cars would be the same way. You got to find your car dealerships. My son's mentioned the gas pump station places, So there was a lot of additional places that he mentioned that, you could go on and populate your world as a world. Like if they just went to Google Earth and just took random city in the world and looked at what kind of structures are in there and just placed it right in the game, you'd be set because you'd have a little bit of everything. So buildings is a huge topic. So this was like buildings part 2. So let's go ahead and head on back. Look at our roadmap where we are.
Saying that actually gave me an idea.
My son's still talking.
You could take different towns from different parts of the world and have it randomly generated into that world.
Oh yeah, he's saying now just take places and put them in the world. All right. So let's see here. We talked about building. We're going to move on from building variety. He's got a lot of thoughts. He just talks. Okay. So let's take a look then. Since I took some time continuing the building discussion, we're just going to cover props and general world objects today. So the Dead Linger is a true living, breathing world. While humanity is, for the most part, gone, everything they left behind is a silent reminder of what had been. The world is no emptier than it was before, with lampposts, desks, beds, chairs, fences, telephone poles, and more. We are always adding details from small to large, and we'll continue to add more with every large update. I mean, that's true. There is a lot. They do have some things that I would not have expected, but add that little bit of detail. Like when you're going through some of the towns, they've got on the ground the power. They look like power utility box things. There's mailboxes. There is furniture. It's here, let's look at the picture with it. What's their picture sample? And I don't think I've seen that in here. Um, but they do have a lot of stuff. Furnishings are still coming. You know, as with everything, there's, it's a framework that they currently have. The proof and concepts that yes, they're 3D furnishings, they just got to buy and purchase more. But what would be interesting, and this picture hints at it a little bit, this is probably a static picture, but what I'm ready to see before you put more items, I mean, I'm not going to complain if you put more items or things to flesh out the world. Obviously it's what we want. But what I'm really looking forward to is interacting with the objects beyond just dragging them. They have fixed the dragging. I can drag a lot of stuff except for the little bales of hay. But, refrigerators, chairs, tables, it's easier to move them around in the world now. And what would be nice is when we can start opening drawers. I want to be able to interact with those items more. I want to be able to go up to the refrigerator, open it, and that's where I find the banana. One thing I thought is really cool about Project Zomboid was they have a system where you can designate when exactly the power in the world goes out and when does water stop becoming available. Because, as society breaks down, there's no one to maintain these things. You're going to lose electricity at some point. What would be neat is when something like that comes to Dead Linger, that level of detail. So when you open the fridge, when you start your game and that timer goes forward counting, the days, there's a point where, power goes out. So when you open the fridge, and because it's a 3D game, you will actually open the fridge door, keep track of the items in the fridge, and then, sure enough, eventually that milk is spoiled or that banana has gone bad. And then you really have to start relying on canned food. So you want to decide, well, which items am I eating first? Well, I'm going to eat all the perishable items first and just stockpile my cans of food. I mean, even cans of food have expiration dates, but, a can of food is going to sit on the shelf and be edible a lot longer than that banana. We all know bananas are, a few days out and they're toast, So that's what I'm waiting to see is the interactivity with these items. So right now it's, they say they're 30% through with the details. I'm going to say that's a never ending. There's a point where it hits 100%, and 100% would be good for saying, here's where it's ready for release and launch to the public. So 30% is just, where they want to be in terms of the release to a full proper game. But adding details is a never ending thing. And we've talked about, well, I've talked about the fear that, you need to be careful. If you just put too much stuff, then it's no longer a survival situation, as everything you need is readily available. But as I think about it, depending on how you want to play your game, having an abundance of things, if it's just you in the world, makes sense. Because you're just going to go from house to house to house, and you're going to find all kinds of stuff, always. If I get tired of living in this house, I'm just going to take a few steps over and move into that house. And when I'm done living there, I'll move on to the next house, Or barricade up one house in particular you like and just every once in a while head out, explore this house, find what you want, bring it back to your house, It's a hoarder's dream. So go ahead and populate it. Put everything in just a nice enclosed area. I'm just really excited to see this game continue to flesh out with items and the buildings. So very excited for where we're going. I did read, this isn't the Twitter review necessarily, but just going back here, they said they're working on a hotfix. 13A is going to be the hotfix number. Said they fixed a lot of duplication issues. Now, that I'm hoping is what's going to help with barricading, because in my mind, without knowing anything about programming, I think that's what's hurting the barricading system. And I'm only bringing the barricading system up again. I know, beat the dead horse. We know it's got issues. It's just that that's what's going to make the buildings more viable. You're being able to store up and protect your items and actually make a home for yourself to house all those items, is if you can actually create the place and protect it the way that you want. So if they can get the duplication fixed, then it also helps limit that feeling of, I don't have to worry about harvesting food or anything like that, because I'll just put a couple cans in the world and they're just going to duplicate. obviously that's part of the alpha experience. That's not going to be part of the release game, and it's obviously something that they want to fix. It's just nice to see that as the game progresses along this alpha path, that some of the glaring issues, are being fixed. I mean, and obviously that's the point of the alpha. I'm just saying it's nice to see every step forward. And that's one reason I wanted to go ahead and buy into this game now is I know it's got all these issues. That's apparent, it's the alpha experience. But it's nice to be able to say, hey, I remember when it was like this and when it went from this to this. I only wish I had got into this sooner. But knowing me and my impatience with things, it's probably good I got in now because the game is in a more playable state than I can only assume that it was in back in like build 1 or build 2, when they first started making it available for purchase. So it's just nice to see the continual progression. Each progression that they make makes the game world more viable so they can actually implement the roadmap. So it's very good. I like it. So I'm going to leave it right there. We'll post this up. Share some thoughts. Maybe there's some more building types that you think would be cool. The big circus tents, things like that. What kind of things are you looking forward to as items? What do you want to see in the game? How do you want to interact with them? It's a fun discussion, and I appreciate all the comments that I get. So I will talk to you all later. Bye.